What do we want to learn from week 4 of the college football season? There's a lot of big-time matchups. With big-time matchups come big-time learning opportunities. But I think outside of those big-time matchups, there's a game being played in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and you got the LSU Tigers set to play Arkansas. LSU favored by 17 points. Almost 3 touchdowns. Not quite, but almost. You hear what I'm saying? 17-point favorite is LSU. Arkansas kind of licking their wounds. Stumbling out of that game against BYU. Didn't look great. Heartbreaker of sorts. Things getting uncomfortable right now in Fayetteville, Arkansas. My question for LSU and what I want to learn, what have we talked about so much all offseason with them and with Brian Kelly and now them going into year 2? Where are they at culturally? Where are they at culturally? Because LSU coming off a nice win against Mississippi State. Like we talked about it here Sunday morning, they got back on track from what they did last weekend. But now in this game, you don't get any points for what you did last game, right? Like we understand that's how this thing works. That's why college football is the greatest sport to ever exist, because week to week means so much. And this week means just as much as last week for LSU. And so that's great that you got a nice win, but now you got a sneaky team rolling into Baton Rouge, a team that's going to be limping in there and have something to prove. Can you hit the reset button if you're LSU? Because it's not really a huge question about the roster. This roster is good enough to get back to Atlanta. Do they have the culture in place to do that? And I'm not asking if the culture is good. I think the culture is solid. But is the culture at a championship level? Because if they are, if that's where the culture's at, that's where the thermostat is set, then Brian Kelly's going to have this team ready to play. They will have dry erased last week and be ready for this week and be the same kind of team that they were last week and take care of business and cover that 17-point spread. If they don't, Arkansas, I promise you, they are talented enough. KJ Jefferson is a good enough quarterback to make this thing uncomfortable. A subplot within this game, Arkansas is going to use the quarterback run game, I would imagine, a fair amount. Like KJ Jefferson in this spot, I promise you, as Brian Kelly stated, is going to try and showcase his abilities. The tricky part with the quarterback run game now, anytime you run the quarterback, you add an extra blocker in that you wouldn't have on a running back run play. You give it to the running back, you got 9 blockers, quarterback hands it off, probably watches the whole thing happen. On a quarterback run play, the running back can now lead block for the quarterback. So what I'm saying is that is tricky and annoying to deal with during the week. It's not fun to have to dedicate a whole period to, hey, here's how we're fitting quarterback power. Here's how we're fitting quarterback sweep. It's tedious. It takes time away from other things you could do during the week, during practice. So how do they play that? Do they have an answer for that? Because they had trouble fitting the counter against Florida State. Does issues with fitting certain run plays show itself again? I don't question the front 7. I question, are we able to fit that consistently how we need to? Because if they can, good things will happen for LSU. If they can't, Arkansas is going to hang around and kind of be pesky, and in the fourth quarter we'll look up and say, that final score is a lot closer than probably should have been if you're playing at home and you're LSU and what you did last week. So should be a lot of fun. We'll watch that one. And really excited to see how much LSU is able to hit the reset button from last week. Will tell us where the culture is at. How far along is Auburn? Because Auburn went to the portal, overhauled a bunch of talent. Hugh Freeze said, hey, I want all y'all on my team because this team last year was not good enough. More power to Hugh Freeze, more power to this staff. When you have a business that's failing, what do? You go get new employees. So I don't want to make the comparison of employees to players, but with NIL, another conversation for another time. You hear what I'm saying. How far along is Auburn and how much have they meshed? Because we understand this now. For Auburn, new staff, bunch of new players. It would make sense if that takes some time to kind of get synced up and be perfect. In this game, though, it'll be a great litmus test because Texas A&M, that's a pretty solid talent roster over there. A lot of jokes being made about Jimbo Fisher and the buyout and them missing a bowl game last year. Like, say what you want. That's still a really good football team from a talent level standpoint. And they will test Auburn. Now, Auburn goes on the road. And the subplot within this for me is what's up with Peyton Thorne? How far along are we if we're Peyton Thorne? Because as good as he looked against Samford, he still has issues turning the football over. As good as this offense looked against Samford, I should say. They didn't look phenomenal against Cal, and I understand it might take a second for him to totally get comfortable because he missed all of spring practice. And we said that when he transferred to Auburn. That was my question in terms of when he would win this job. Because being able to be the quarterback of a new team, typically you see that happen when they transfer before spring practice because those 15 practices are when you do a lot of the day one installs and you kind of walk through the basics of your offense. Peyton Thorne missed all of that. So obviously he's up to speed enough to where you feel good about where he's at to be your starting quarterback. But I'll say this, for this game for Auburn, to beat Texas A&M, Peyton Thorne can't be a game manager. I wholeheartedly believe there will be plays to be made for Peyton Thorne. I think these pass catchers for Auburn are going to separate from Texas A&M like Miami's pass catchers did when we saw them in Coral Gables. Can you hit that shot? You do not win this game with a subpar stat line from Peyton Thorne. You won't do it. I think Texas A&M is going to force you to score points and answer scores. So I need Peyton Thorne to kind of step up to bat here a little bit. Now, if they lose this game, I want to make this very clear. It's house money. Like the pressure, all the pressure is on A&M in that football game. We understand that. Jimbo Fisher, I wouldn't say he's coaching for his job because that buyout is monstrous. But if he loses this football game, there's going to be a lot of noise in College Station, Texas. So for Auburn, like I said, house money. If you lose, nobody's hitting the fire alarm. But it's just a great chance for us to see, okay, where are they at as a team? How far along is this roster? How far along is this, meshing of the staff and the new players? I'm excited to watch it, and Peyton Thorne will be a focal point for them should they end up winning this football game. Now, another quarterback we've got to check in on here. Let's take a look at what's going on with Drew Aller. Not All, but Aller. What happens against Iowa if that run game isn't as potent as it's been the last couple of weeks for him? And Drew Aller's looked awesome, okay? There's been no signs of him being a first-year starting quarterback. You love that. No first-year starting quarterback syndrome for him. Even so, though, every Power 5 game they've played against West Virginia and Illinois, the running game has averaged 4 yards a carry. What does that mean? It means they've been able to be balanced. It means the defense hasn't been able to key on that pass game. Now, Iowa, we know what they are. Historically, really good front seven, and right now, the defense is statistically one of the better defenses in the country when it comes to points allowed per game. Bottom line, I think Iowa's front seven will, at the very least, provide some resistance for that Penn State run game. I think they're going to at least put up a fight. And so the question then becomes, can Drew Aller put the game on his back, even if it's just for a quarter, even if it's just to kind of keep the Iowa defense honest? Can we lean on Drew Aller and put it all on him? And can he be that guy that we expected him to be when he became the starting quarterback at Penn State? When he was that high-profile recruit that came to Penn State? He's the reason for optimism. The defense, I think, in itself may ultimately make this whole conversation a moot point. We might have to wait a little bit longer to learn this about Drew Aller. But I'm just curious now. If the Penn State offense isn't able to be as balanced as they want to in the early going, Iowa just kind of plants the flag and says, you know what, wideout conditions, we got to stop the run. We're going to sell out Drew Aller, first-year starting quarterback. You beat us. You be the one to do it. Can he? I think he can, but I want to see it. I want to see it because, again, so far, so good in that run game for Penn State. Let's stay with quarterbacks here. How about Kyle McCord, man? Big game. Biggest game of his young career to this point, being the guy at Ohio State. They go to South Bend. It's going to be the game of the week. We all understand that. Is he there? And when I say there, that's kind of an unfair amount of pressure to put on him with it being game 4 of the season. But even so, we understand Ohio State, the pressure to be the quarterback at a school like that is a little bit higher than it is other places. It is more crucial for Kyle McCord to have an elite performance week in to week out than it would be other places. One, because of the standard that's been created there. Like Ryan Day officially has created the standard. If you're our quarterback in Columbus, Ohio, you go and, you at least have a chance to win the Heisman Trophy. You're probably a finalist, and you're a first-round draft pick. That is the standard. So that in itself kind of creates some pressure by nature of the shoes you got to step into. But the other side of that is, by nature of the playmakers on this offense, you better be able to unlock those. We can't have a game where Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't getting his and eating greedy because you're having problems serving it up to him. We can't have issues with you being inaccurate. And in this game against Notre Dame, I think this Fighting Irish defense is going to have something cooked up, similar to what I said about Peyton Thorne. There is no scenario for Ohio State where Kyle McCord game manages his way out of South Bend with a win. And that's not really been his style. To be fair, they haven't had to open it up too much yet against Indiana and against Western Kentucky. Like, we haven't really had to see them rev the engine too much just yet. But to the same token, we need to see them do it in this game. We need to see him throw the football, I think, a fair amount for them to beat Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana. So how far along is he? The question I have is he there? Is he at that level of play in week 4 to where we can start talking about how they stack up with Penn State, how they stack up against Michigan, and already have this variable of Kyle McCord and what he is at quarterback being a more solid variable of that piece? Like, there's less variance with what we expect from Kyle McCord. I'm curious to see in this game. Now, on the other side of things, man, when it comes to Notre Dame, and we were going to talk about this in our prediction segment a little bit, but I want to preview it a little bit now. Notre Dame, man, where's that extra gear at? Well, again, we have a prediction on this a little bit later, but we understand. I think that Ohio State and Kyle McCord are going to score points. I think they will force the issue. So that falls back on Sam Hartman. We've talked about new Notre Dame. I've said multiple times, this is not your Rudy's Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman brought some juice to that operation. Challenge everything Sam Hartman is here for a game like this. We think they have that extra gear. We've seen it against other teams. But to do it against NC State and to do it against Ohio State, two very different operations. So again, we'll talk about that more in this live show a little bit later. But those are things I want to learn, man. Great learning opportunities across the board in college football this week. I cannot wait for it. And it's going to be a whole lot of fun. So roll, party, roll. Let's get out the notepad. Let's take some notes, and let's learn a thing or two. Now, HelloFresh will get you farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorsteps. All right, skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. All right, when it comes to options, honestly, we all understand this. More is more. All right, you don't want to eat the same thing over and over again, not just the same turkey sandwich, the same chicken and rice. With HelloFresh, the menu includes 40 recipes and over 100 add-on items to choose from every single week. When you get HelloFresh, you know you're getting top-notch produce, okay? Some kind of these meal services, these meal kits, you get some produce, get some meat, and you're like, I don't know. I don't know if I trust that. I don't know about that one, boss. I'm not sure that I feel 100% comfortable putting that into my body. HelloFresh, not the case. Like I said, top-notch produce travels from the farm to your door in less than 7 days. So go to HelloFresh.com/50JD. This is a killer deal. Use code 50JD for 50% off plus 15% off the next 2 months. Okay, so that's go to HelloFresh.com/50JD. Use code 50JD. 50% off plus 15% off the next 2 months. America's #1 meal kit with the hard count, handshake emoji. Life is good, eat good, live good, watch college football good, honestly. So we appreciate them rocking with us, and we appreciate them getting all of us ready for college football. I don't want to say season. College football last 2/3 of the season, maybe the right way to go about it. We appreciate HelloFresh. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.